Charlotte Denese Doles was born on July 3, 1963. She graduated from New Stanton High School in Jacksonville, Florida, and had a son named Raymond with her high school sweetheart Henry Mans. At 19 years old, she was still living in Jacksonville, raising her 3-year-old son when she strangely disappeared. On Father's Day, June 19, 1983, Charlotte went on a movie date with Mans, who was also 19 at the time. They planned to see a movie near what is now Regency Square Mall. However, Mans later claimed that Charlotte became upset after seeing him talking to another woman at the concession stand. He stated that she refused to leave with him, so he left her at the theater. That would be the last time Charlotte was ever seen again. Mans, heavily involved in Jacksonville's drug trade during the 1980s, was a notorious figure known as a crack cocaine kingpin. At the peak of his operations, he controlled nearly 30% of Duval County's crack cocaine sales. Unfortunately, his reputation for violence and intimidation likely contributed to the lack of progress in solving Charlotte's case. Mans was arrested in 1988 during a massive drug crackdown involving 13 other individuals. Authorities seized his property, guns, money, and vehicles. His then-girlfriend, 24-year-old Carlisa Booth, was also arrested and set to testify against him, but before trial, she and her cousin, 23-year-old LaWanda Singletary, disappeared. Regardless, he was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. The women's family suspected foul play due to Carlisa's connection to Mans and his drug operations. In February 1989, Carlisa and LaWanda's skeletal remains were discovered in an area matching a location Singletary's mother had urged police to search. Then the unexpected happened in 2007. Mans began cooperating with prosecutors and was released from prison. Since then, he has remained a controversial figure in Jacksonville. He has been linked to business ventures, including allegedly serving as vice president of a nonprofit under investigation for real estate and investment fraud. Despite his criminal history, Mans benefited from Jacksonville's surplus property donation program, receiving free land intended for affordable housing development. The program faced scrutiny after reports revealed that 95% of recipients failed to use the land as intended. State records show the nonprofit J. White Community Development Corporation was registered to Janae White, a Jacksonville entrepreneur under investigation for real estate and investment fraud. White, who allegedly misused funds from investors, listed Mans as the vice president. An inspector general's report in late 2023 revealed that out of 62 recipients of free property in 2020, 59 violated the donation agreement, with 23 properties sold for profit. A new vetting process for applicants was implemented after the city gave away 174 parcels of land in 2020 and 41 more in 2023. Despite all of this, Mans remains a free man. Charlotte's case, along with the deaths of Booth and Singletary, underscores the devastating impact of Mans' criminal enterprises and the lingering questions surrounding these tragedies. Charlotte was described as standing 5 foot 4 inches tall and weighing about 160 pounds. She disappeared on June 19, 1983, and as of January 2025, she has never been found, and this case remains unsolved. Crystal McCory Jones was born on May 17, 1979. At age 43, Crystal was living in Oak Grove, Louisiana, with her husband, Tony Joe Jones, when a horrible tragedy occurred. On February 9, 2023, Tony asked the West Carroll Parish Sheriff's Department, where he was previously employed, to do a welfare check on Crystal after allegedly trying to call her and receiving no response. She had also missed a doctor's appointment. When Deputy Chuck Harris arrived and knocked on the door, there was no answer. After getting permission from Tony to enter the home, he found Crystal dead in the bedroom from a gunshot wound to the head. Investigators quickly ruled that she took her own life, concluding their investigation in just 105 minutes. The swift decision and numerous inconsistencies raised skepticism from Crystal's family and independent investigators. Crime scene photos showed Crystal lying with a pillow over her face, a gunshot through the pillow, and the gun still in her hand. Investigators noted the gun failed to chamber the next round, a condition often attributed to a limp wrist when firing. The shell casing from the fatal shot was not initially found, but was reportedly discovered by Tony 9 days later, a detail the family found troubling. Officials claim the casing was visible in crime scene photos, but Jana, Crystal's sister, confirmed it was not there. Further discrepancies included bruising on Crystal's hands and inner thighs, along with a broken fingernail, which suggested a struggle. The parish coroner's report was filled with errors, including misspelled names, incorrect date of birth and date of death, and fabricated health conditions like pneumonia and seizures, which Jana confirmed her sister never had. The time of death was also altered from 10:35 a.m. to 5:05 p.m. without explanation. The investigation lacked basic protocols. The area was not canvassed, neighbors were not interviewed, and fewer than 40 photos were taken at the crime scene, some showing the family dog on the bed with Crystal's body. The coroner's report failed to document the bruising visible in photographs, which the forensic pathologist later attributed to post-mortem lividity, which is the pooling of blood in the body after death due to gravity. However, the family was able to take pictures of her body before she was cremated and have disputed this claim. Tony's actions following Crystal's death also raised further questions. He reportedly disabled the home's Ring doorbell camera 2 days before her death, sought to claim a $63,000 life insurance policy soon after, and had Crystal's body cremated against her family's wishes, eliminating the possibility of an independent autopsy. He also changed his narrative of his whereabouts on the day in question, with Google Timeline location records putting him near their home at the time of her death. Jana, dissatisfied with the investigation, reached out to renowned cold case investigator Sheila Wysocki. Sheila criticized the sheriff's department for its handling of the case, noting the lack of thoroughness and transparency. The family also sought assistance from state and federal authorities, but their efforts were denied. Jana also discovered potentially incriminating evidence on Crystal's laptop, but when presented to local officials, the family was dismissed. Crystal's family continues to seek justice and launched a Change.org petition calling for the case to be reopened and for a thorough investigation to be conducted. Crystal Jones died under suspicious circumstances on February 9, 2023, and as of January 2025, her case remains unsolved. 17-year-old Jessica Wallace, who went by Jessie, had spent most of her life in foster care and had a history of running away from home. She often ran away from her mother, Deborah Flannery's home in LaGrange, Kentucky, which led many to assume she had done it again when she disappeared in August of 2001. At the time of her disappearance, she was in the state's custody at the Home of the Innocents in Louisville, Kentucky, when she decided to go visit her boyfriend in Taylor County. After that, the facility never saw her again, and she was reported missing on August 22, 2001. Her mother saw her one final time when she stopped by to gather some belongings and left with an unknown man, later identified as her boyfriend's cousin. This man allegedly brought her to a mobile home owned by a friend. The woman living there, who was pregnant, asked Jessie to leave upon learning she was a runaway, saying she didn't want to get involved. Before Jessie disappeared, she was last seen walking alone along Slate Creek Road, a desolate area near the Marion and Taylor County line. For 2 years, her fate remained a mystery, and her case received little attention, particularly after she turned 18. Her mother, Deborah Flannery, initially believed rumors that Jessie had moved to Florida. Deborah assumed her daughter had run off with someone and would eventually return or call, but neither would ever occur. On March 29, 2003, Jessie's skeletal remains were discovered in a wooded area along Slate Creek Road, not far from where she was last seen. No clothing was found near her remains, though small pieces of duct tape were recovered nearby. However, DNA analysis on the duct tape yielded no usable results. Jessie's bones showed no obvious signs of trauma, leaving her cause of death undetermined. Despite this, Kentucky State Police classified her death as a homicide. A disturbing clue emerged when Deborah received an anonymous phone call before the remains were officially identified. The caller chillingly said, "Jessica is dead," before hanging up. The phrasing of "died" rather than "was killed" led investigators to consider the possibility of an accidental death. However, no suspects or persons of interest have ever been publicly named. Questions remain about whether Jesse's boyfriend or his cousin were thoroughly investigated. Jessica's remains were found just miles from where she was last seen, near a trailer she and a close friend were known to frequent. Jessica was murdered in 2001, and as of January 2025, her case remains unsolved. Kimberly Raye Pitchford, who went by Kim, was born on April 9, 1956, in Houston, Texas, to parents Elmer and Carol. Known for her shy yet dependable nature, Kim was an active and engaged teenager. At 16, she lived with her family in Pasadena, Texas, and was a sophomore at Dobie High School, located just 3 miles from her home. On January 3, 1973, the first day back at school after Christmas break, Kim attended classes, with her last one being driver's ed, which finished at 6 p.m. She was supposed to call her parents for a ride home, but that call never came. Concerned, they called her best friend, Karen Fram, and learned that Kim had borrowed money from her for lunch that day and was upset over her boyfriend, Jimmy Maddox, being in jail. After that, her parents reported her missing. Jimmy had joined the Army at 17 and had been home on leave since the Christmas holiday. On New Year's Eve, he and his 2 friends met Kim and her friends at the Trampoline, a popular teen hangout located across from the Alameda Mall. Before midnight, they drove everyone over to Kim's house, where they hung out for a while. Jimmy, along with his 2 friends, began wandering down the street and were arrested by police for breaking into cars. While the 2 friends were released 2 days later, Jimmy was detained for being AWOL. Since he couldn't possibly have been involved in her disappearance, he was quickly ruled out. 2 of the last students to possibly see her alive on the day she disappeared were Russell Soames, her driving partner, and another student named Jimmy Hester, who had been waiting around for his 6 p.m. class to start. Hester said he saw Russell get out of the driver's ed car around 6 p.m., but never saw Kim. Two days later, on January 5, 1973, 2 teenage boys discovered Kim's partially clothed body in a canal beneath a wooden bridge in Brazoria County, about 30 miles south of where she was last seen. Kim had sadly been strangled to death. Although her body was partially nude, it was unclear whether she had been sexually assaulted. She was still in her blue dress, and her coat was hanging on a nearby fence, but her shoes and watch were missing. Years would go by with no suspects until 2011, when serial killer Edward Harold Bell, who was serving a 70-year sentence for a separate murder, claimed responsibility for Kim's death and the murders of 11 other young women in the early 1970s. However, Bell's confessions lacked specific details and were based on information already available in public records. Experts cast doubt on his claims, noting the inconsistency in his pattern of behavior, as Bell later became notorious for exposing himself to children rather than continuing to commit murders. Kim's case is one of several unsolved murders in the Houston area from the 1970s, often linked to the mysteries of I-45, where at least 12 young women were murdered or disappeared along the stretch of Interstate 45 between Houston and Galveston. Despite decades of efforts, Kim's murder remains unsolved. She was killed on January 3, 1973, and as of January 2025, her case remains unsolved. Paul Bellemore was born on June 23, 1979. At 43 years old, he lived in Cornwall, Ontario, and was known for being friendly, reliable, and hardworking. While Paul never married or had children, he maintained close relationships with his siblings and had a tight-knit group of friends. However, hidden within his trusted circle was a betrayal that would lead to his mysterious disappearance. On July 29, 2022, Paul disappeared under mysterious circumstances, with conflicting reports about when and where he was last seen. City surveillance cameras captured Paul driving around Cornwall before parking his cherished black BMW near the Cornwall Civic Complex at 100 Water Street. Once there, he got out, walked away, and never returned. He was then seen on surveillance near Lamoureux Park, along the Cornwall waterfront, while others suggest he was last seen on Brookdale Street, walking down Tollgate Road toward Vincent Massey Drive with a female companion and another male. A black Infiniti vehicle was reportedly following them slowly, adding an ominous layer to the story. This would be the last confirmed sighting of Paul, and his car was later found sitting in the same spot where he left it. Unfortunately, authorities only spent 2 days searching for him after being reported missing. Before that, his girlfriend at the time, Kayla, failed to notify his family until 4 or 5 days later. She also never got involved with search efforts. Their relationship had just become public on Facebook 5 days before he went missing. Things with Kayla only get stranger from there because Paul wasn't the first person in her circle to either vanish or meet an untimely death. Before his disappearance, Paul had been helping Kayla work toward regaining custody of her children, who had been placed in foster care due to her past involvement in illegal activities. Many people believe she was involved in his disappearance. It's worth noting that Paul had just come into some money after selling his house. He was planning to buy a new house, but never got the chance. Paul stood 5 foot 11 inches and had green eyes and shaved brown hair. He also had numerous tattoos, including a crown on his right tricep. His family and friends fear he met with foul play, with some speculating that his remains could be hidden on the Mohawk Indian Reserve. Despite these concerns, the case has received little media coverage, leaving his loved ones feeling forgotten by the authorities and the community. The lack of leads and limited police resources have only added to their frustration. The Ottawa Police, along with the Ontario Provincial Police and Cornwall authorities, continue to seek the public's assistance in solving Paul's case. Paul Bellemore went missing on July 29, 2022, and as of January 2025, his case remains unsolved.